This is Diamond D with where I'm giving you some love advice, some happiness advice, some everyday good advice to make your day a little more loving. Hi, I'm Diamond D, and this is Love and Happiness, where we will discuss everyday topics on love and happiness to make your day a little better. Today's guest is Mr. Gary Abra Sr. He graduated from St. Augustine College in Business Administration and Finance in the year 2000, and he is an established author of two leading books in the dating industry. And he's an entrepreneur. Currently, he is writing his third book, which will be available on Amazon. Mr. Gary Abra Sr. has over 20 years of dating experience and research. Let's welcome Mr. Abra to the show. Hi, Mr. Abra. Thank you for joining our show today. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for considering me for the show.
You're quite welcome. Let's talk a little bit about your book, Knowing the Game.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to write it, and why did you decide to write this book?
It took me exactly 2 years to write it. Originally, I started posting little snippets on Facebook, and they were getting a lot of rave reviews from my viewers and friends. So I decided to keep going. Eventually, I got to about 8 tips, and people decided to tell me, "Hey, why don't you write a book?" I was like, if I get to 50 tips, I'll do it. So I kept going. I made it to 50, so I kept my word, and I wrote the book.
Tell me, what is the game, and how do you know how to play it?
The game is the philosophy of male and female interactions or same-sex interactions. It's kind of the same deal. You're both going to be dating. You're both going to be finding out a lot about each other, and that's a part of the game of life. The way you play it is just be smart and understand who your competition is.
So who's the competition that you allude to?
The competition is the person that you're dating. You're both trying to figure out what each other likes, what each other dislikes, the certain things that are going to complement the relationship or the courtship that you're going to be in. So it's sort of a back and forth competition between the two. Like a tennis player, you hit the ball, I hit the ball back, and ultimately, somebody wins the game, or we both win the game, depending on who, if we like each other or not.
So that's winning the game is if there's two people who like each other and decide to be in a committed relationship. That's how you know if you won?
That's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the player that you're asking. Some people consider sex as a win. Some people consider a relationship as a win. So it kind of just depends on who you're asking.
I know in your book you talked about body language and some of the subtle cues that let you know if a person is attracted to you or not. Mm-hmm. What are those subtle cues that you allude to?
Subtle cues that the person may or may not know. It just depends on how they're facing you. I like to call it the shoulder rule. If you have 100% of their shoulders, such as this, that means you have their full attention. If you have about half, that means you have half of their attention. If you're looking sideways, that means they're not really all that focused on you, but they are listening to what you have to say. Sometimes people are just being nice when they do that.
So do you think that if a person is giving you more attention, they're more interested in you as opposed to half attention?
It just depends on the person. Some people just like to be nice, but there are other cues that go along with that, such as maybe subtle non-sexual touching, a little bit of flirting.
Very good point. In your book, you mentioned about your observations with older men in your family and observing how they were womanizers or they were cheaters. How do you think a person can break that cycle if they are only observing sort of that level of cheating and dysfunction in a relationship?
In my opinion, I'd say it's very hard to actually break that cycle because it's all about what you grow up seeing. Like a lot of the people from the poor neighborhoods, they often mention that they didn't see doctors and lawyers when they were growing up. They saw pimps and drug dealers and all that stuff, so that's all they knew. So if you grow up and you see that's all that you know, then it's going to be hard to break that cycle unless you take a very honest look at yourself and determine that that's something that I need to change in the future.
Mm-hmm. So you can change it. You just have to be more conscious of who you are as an individual and recognize that you want to change.
It's possible to change, but it's often a rarity. Like I liken it to nature versus nurture. Sometimes you can nurture something, but eventually nature's going to take over and that person's going to become who they actually are. Like I said, you take an honest take at the type of individual that you are and you make an effort to try to change it, but it's always an uphill battle. It's like somebody who's addicted to drugs and then they get off of the drug. you're always combating that inner monster inside of you. So you're gonna have to be conscious of that at all times.
I see. Well, I read your book, Knowing the Game, and on page 52 of your first volume of the book, and I'm going to read a quote from you. It says, "This outrageous and often ridiculous display is called peacocking. In the animal kingdom, a male peacock will spread his tail and show all the amazing colors and patterns just to get the attention of the female peacock. In a nutshell, she falls for it and ultimately ends up mating with him." So what are the peacocking characteristics that men are using today to sort of, trick a female?
Well, I'd like to say that the game hasn't changed much over the years. Often, guys, they'll use their status, they'll use their material things. Sometimes they'll go out and they get a very nice car, they get big chains, they get super flashy clothes. Like the newest thing is guys dressing up prettier than women now. They do that to get the attention, to get all eyes on them, and apparently it's still working because men are still doing it.
Do you think it's a way that they sort of hide or mask their insecurities or their flaws, or what do you make of that?
Well, you're 100% right on that. A lot of them do use that to mask their insecurities because maybe they don't have the confidence to approach certain women, so they decide to make those women approach them. So it's kind of a reverse psychology on the game.
Very interesting. I think we have time for our first caller. Hi, you're on the air with Love and Happiness with Diamond D, and my Love and Happiness expert of the day, Gary Abra Sr. How can we help you?
Hey, D, I have a question. Who should pay for the first date?
That's a very good question. Thank you. What do you think, Mr. Abra? Who should pay for the first date?
When it comes to the first date, traditionally, I'd say that the male should pay for the first date. I mean, there are different circumstances now because, of course, you have same-sex dates, so I can't really speak on that. However, moving from that point, the person who actually initiates the date probably should be paying for the date. But traditionally, the first date is normally for the male.
Do you have any suggestions for good first date ideas and locations?
Before you actually even get to the first date, it's best to find out what the person's into. Like some people, they may be into sci-fi, so you might want to take them to a sci-fi convention. Some people may be nerdy, or you might want to take them to, say, like an escape room. I just recently opened one up myself. I think that's actually a great idea for all first dates because you get to learn a lot about the other individual. You get to learn if they're a take charge type of person. Are they going to follow? Are they going to lead? How do they think critically? How do they work with you as a team? And I think it's a great idea. You should definitely do that for your first date. You're going to be doing a lot of interacting, a lot of talking, a lot of you do this and I do that. It's a lot of teamwork, and you're going to find out exactly how compatible you guys are when you do an escape room.
So where's your escape room located?
It's currently located in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay. Very good. Definitely I will have to check that out. So I know you mentioned about the man paying for the first date. Do you think chivalry is dead? What's your opinion about men paying for all the dates and opening the doors for the lady? Do you think that is a generational thing with like more men who are in their 50s and 60s expecting that to be the norm?
I personally don't think that chivalry is dead. I believe that it is on hold, though. The new independent woman era has kind of placed chivalry on hold for a moment because a lot of women, they like to do things for themselves. They don't really like for the male to do it. There are guys that do tend to have the old school flavor and like to open doors and pay for dinners and pay for trips and all that stuff. But with the new era ushered in, it's a lot harder to do that now.
Yeah, I can see that happening. In your book, you talked about the importance of appearance in dating versus your appearance in committed relationship. Can you expand upon those points that you made?
Okay, as in appearance, we're referring to physique, dress style, those things of that manner. Okay, normally when people are dating, they have their best foot forward because they're trying to win the game, so to speak. And once they actually win the game, then they get comfortable. Once you get comfortable, you become careless. That's when you let yourself go. That's when you don't dress the same way that you used to. You don't go out on the same types of dates anymore. You'd rather just sit at home and eat pizza, watch TV, as opposed to going out and dancing like you did when you were actually on the dating scene and actually courting that person. So the best thing to do is just be consistent the whole time. The way that you get them is the way that you're going to keep them. If any of that changes, especially when you're doing the relationship, let's say they weren't dressing the way that they used to, then all of a sudden now they're dressing differently. Or they stopped going to the gym and then a year later all of a sudden they're going back to the gym again. That's something that you want to keep in mind, because that means that they're back out in the field. They're going back into their dating mode, and there may be an issue with the relationship on the horizon.
I hear you. I think we have time for a second caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air with Love and Happiness with Diamond D, with myself and Mr. Gary Abra Sr. as our love and happiness expert on today's show. How can we help you?
Hi, I was calling to get some advice on like my most recent situation as far as dating. So I'm on a couple of Facebook singles groups. I met a guy on one of the groups. We hit it off. We kind of talked every day in some form or fashion for like 3 weeks. So whether it's text or actually calling each other, video chat. And then like gradually after the third week, he kind of seemed to lose interest. So whatever the term is, ghosted, maybe I think that's what kind of happened to me. So once that happens and someone stops responding to you, do you block them on your phone, block them on social media? Like, what is the next thing you should do? Should you ask them why?
Thank you, caller. So, Mr. Abra, can you respond to her question?
Absolutely. Once you've been ghosted, that's a part of the game. Like I say, the game is the game. It's going to happen. Listening to her speak, she said they were speaking very consistently for the past 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden, nothing. What happened was she was in a race with somebody else, and that other person won. So he has to focus his attention on that other person and eventually find a way to get rid of you.
Do you think he could ever circle back to her? Or do you think it's over?
Oh, it's absolutely. If the other person messes up, he's all of a sudden just out of the blue just going to give you a call back or a text back and going to pretend like nothing really happened. He's going to weasel his way back in. I suggest that you completely ignore that and move forward with somebody else, because he made you second place and now he's trying to follow up with you when it's not going to work out in the long run.
I see. Now, you had talked about in your book your experience dating introverts versus extroverts. Do you think that one personality type makes better dates than the other?
No. It's just completely two different types of personalities that you're going to have to deal with, and you need to adjust your approach depending on which one you're with. If you're with somebody that's completely extroverted, you're going to have to do things that are out there, things that are going to be exciting to them, things that are going to show their personality and show your personality. An introvert doesn't necessarily want to go out and do a whole lot of those things. They're more of the Netflix and chill type of individual. They do like to go out occasionally, but the crowds and all the luster is not necessarily for them. So you just need to find out what type of person you're dating and adjust your approach.
I see. Also in your book, you said something about men can't commit or establish or start a relationship if they're going through some difficult situation in their life, like, let's say, for example, if they lost their job, if they're unemployed, if they just are grieving on a death of their family member. How can a woman handle that situation if they know that they've been texting and talking to a guy and suddenly he doesn't have a job?
That's a good question. There are 3 aspects to any type of relationship. I like to call them physical, mental, and financial. If any one of those is lacking, the guy is not going to be all there, especially if he's a man's man. If he can't feel like he can provide for you, he's not going to be ready for a relationship. If he's not mentally there, if he's grieving, if he's worried about a new job or something like that, he's not going to be there for you mentally, so he's not going to give you the attention that you need. If physically he's not there, if he's not performing or things of that nature, he's most likely not going to focus on that relationship, so to speak, at all either. Men like to be men. If he can't be a man, he's not going to pursue a relationship with you.
I think that sometimes when you're over a certain age, dating becomes difficult if you're dating with children. I've heard situations where, men who are pursuing a woman pays for babysitting expenses. What do you think about that? Do you think that that should be the norm, or how do you feel about men offering to pay for those babysitting expenses for the lady to go on a date?
It's not the norm, but it should be. I do think that the male should pay for the babysitter. It sets a good precedence for the rest of the courtship, because it lets them know that you understand that they're a package and you care about that particular situation. Um, when it comes to actually dating somebody with children, you have to be aware that you can't just come out of nowhere with being spontaneous with the dates. You have to kind of plan a lot better when it comes to that, because they do have to find the babysitter, and they do have to pay for it. So if you pay for it, that's a good idea. It's going to give you brownie points. So I definitely recommend that to all the gentlemen that are dating women with children.
Oh, wonderful. Oprah says, "Never let anyone dim your light." What do you take from that quote?
I say always be yourself, because if you focus on getting approval from somebody else, then you're always going to be at an impasse with your own personality. A lot of people, they asphyxiate being a success on life with whether they're married or not, and I think that's a huge mistake, because it's just based on what society says. Just because you're not married at a certain age doesn't mean that you're less of a person. It should not dim your light in that particular fashion. You shouldn't be out there trying to seek approval from everyone, trying to garner a bunch of attention that you don't really need or want, just to feel like you're something more. You need to be happy with yourself first before you put yourself out there to try to be happy with someone else.
Good answer. Good answer. Let's talk a little bit about your purpose and your life calling, and how they are in agreement with what you're doing today.
That is a good question. I live my life. I love helping people and teaching people. You mentioned recently, I just opened up my escape room. I hired 2 young people. They were just recently out of high school. They're working their way towards college and working their way towards their careers. They needed a lot of help with a lot of that. I had to fix their resumes because their resumes were awful. I had to get them to update their LinkedIn because it still looked like a high school page. I'm teaching them a lot of things as it relates to business. I'm teaching them a lot of things as it relates to finance and financial literacy. So my whole purpose is to do all that, and then hopefully they'll pass it forward so we can eliminate a lot of this financial illiteracy that's been plaguing us as we went to high school and college, because they don't teach you everything that you need to know about life in high school.
That is so true.
It's been 20 plus years and I've never used the Pythagorean theorem. I don't know why they told us that we needed that, but it has not been a part of my life.
Yep, and now they even have Pi Day, so you got to acknowledge it as an adult. So it sounds like you're a mentor to the 2 individuals that you just hired. Who are your personal mentors?
I'd like to say my professor in college, Dr. Frank Godfrey, Sr. He actually shed light on a lot of things that I was privy to, but I didn't really understand it. But taking his classes, it kind of gave me clarity and it gave me vision. So I used that and I moved forward with that in life. A lot of those theories, a lot of those beliefs, and it's been working out for me so far.
Very good. Have you ever had some good love and happiness advice given to you that you want to share, or do you have good love and happiness advice that you can share with the viewers that you came up with on your own?
I haven't really come across a lot of things that are probably good for TV as far as sharing that aspect, but from my point of view, when you're on a date, I always say less. It's one of the rules of power. A lot of male and female, I'm not just going to throw women under the bus, they give away too much information about themselves and their past dating relationships. For instance, if you tell me that he never opened the doors for you and he never sent you flowers just because, if I have ill intentions, I'm going to do all of that. So it's best to keep certain things under wrap, give them just enough information, give them just enough rope to keep them interested and keep them going, to just see if they put their best foot forward.
Do you think in knowing the game, and I mention this because you said that they shared what was not done in a previous relationship, so somebody who was exploitive would try to do it to just get them or to win the game, as you speak. Do you think that that is somehow sort of capitalizing on their weakness?
Yes, that's a part of the game. The game is the game. We're like sharks in the water. Once we see that weakness, we're gonna go for it. So if you show your weaknesses early, then you're gonna be exploited. So just keep in mind of what you're saying throughout every conversation, because guys do pay attention despite the despite the narrative that they don't.
So do you think somebody can be like out of the game and be single and not have anyone? And I asked this question because you said the winning of the game is deciding that you find somebody that you like. But can someone say, okay, I'm not in the game anymore. I haven't found anybody. Can I still just elect to not play? Do you think that occurs with some men?
It does. As far as what I said about winning, it kind of depends on the individual. Some people are better with just a sexual relationship. Some people are better with a stable relationship, and some people are just okay with just being by themselves. So winning just depends upon the individual.
Very good, very good. So where can people find your book?
They can find it on Amazon. Just look up Knowing the Game, VL1 and VL2.
Wonderful.
The VL stands for Valued Lessons. So Valued Lessons 1 and Valued Lessons 2. I don't have chapters in any of my books. I have lessons. So it starts from lesson 1 all the way to 50 in book 1. And it picks up in book 2 from lesson 51 all the way to lesson 100.
Mr. Abra, if you can see yourself 20 years ago, what piece of advice would you give your younger self?
As it pertains to what?
As it pertains to love, dating, women, relationships, and overall happiness.
Well, 20 years ago, I was actually just getting started dating, so I probably wouldn't tell myself much. I'd let me figure out all the errors and ways that actually led me to become who I am today.
What advice would you give your son as he becomes a teenager and becomes a man in the area of dating?
I tell him to always be paying attention, always be aware, always be thinking. Some people accuse me of overanalyzing. I think that I'm analyzing just enough because a lot of the times it's turned out exactly as I thought it would turn out. So I definitely tell him to be on his P's and Q's, so to speak.
So I know you're in the process of writing your third book. When can we expect that to come out?
As of yet, that is undetermined, but it will be my second, well, sorry, not my second, but my third and my fourth book. I'm going to release them very close together.
Oh, very good, very good. And I'm curious, what author inspires you and motivates you to do what you do?
The reason why I actually even wrote the first book, I don't know if you guys have heard of Tariq Nasheed. He's actually the guy who creates all those Hidden Color movies. He came out with a book back in the day when I was trying to figure out how to actually date because I had no experience, I had no clue what I was doing. The name of the book is called The Art of Macking. I picked it up, I took a few cues from that book, and I used them moving forward. A lot of the things I thought were impractical, so I tried to make them very practical when I wrote my books.
Very good. So, thank you, Mr. Abra, for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Check out more of Love and Happiness on News Talk 1450 in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area at 11:30 a.m. every Thursday on The Chris Thomas Show or on the News Talk 1450 app. Thank you to the entire Chris Thomas Radio Show family, and especially my big brother, Chris Thomas. You can follow Love and Happiness on SoundCloud, Facebook, IG, and Twitter. I'm going to leave you with one of my famous Love and Happiness quotes from Paul Coelho. He says, "When we love, we always strive to become better than we are. So let's be better." Thank you for watching Love and Happiness with Diamond D. God bless you, and I love you.